Underwriting in 2024 isn't the same as 2023. As the market moves, so does underwriting and the policies that we need to use to be able to underwrite your files. Stay tuned in this video. We're going to explain to you all things that you need to know to keep up to date in underwriting your buildings in 2024. Hey guys, Josh and Aaron back with another Finance Friday video, and today we wanted to take it back to basics and discuss how to underwrite and analyze a multifamily property. A lot of you might think that this is pretty easy, but as you may know, as markets change, so do how you analyze properties. So we wanted to break down what's changing in 2024 and what you should be looking out for when underwriting your property.
Yeah, I think the most common thing that we see from our end is an investor brings us a property, he's got his own expenses put out, and he says, look, it qualifies, I'm at a 1.4 debt servicing. And then when we sit down and we take a look at it, we have to explain to them that when we're going into CMHC, there's a lot of specific expenses that a lot of investors are missing. You're usually somewhere between like 10 to 12% in expenses less on your own underwriting than what you would be with CMHC. And that's a huge difference when we're taking a look at these large loans and being able to qualify. So again, just like Josh said, we want to kind of break that down and let you know, what else you need to take into consideration other than just, what's given to you by the realtor and the seller.
Yes, the difference between underwriting your actual property and the operations of your property, we know are going to be two very different things. Can't tell you how many people come to us and say, well, I'm self-managing my building. Why do I need to use a management fee? It doesn't quite work like that. You need to look at your building the same way a bank is going to look at your building. So if the bank were to take possession of your property, what would it cost to operate that building from a financial standpoint? And that's how you really need to look at it, from the dollars and cents of your building and how it's operating. So let's get right into it. Your realtor gives you a income and expense letter. It says, here's my income, here's my expenses, what do you do? Well, first thing you do, you take a look at your property taxes, your insurance, your utility costs. Those are usually fixed costs. Those are usually provided by the seller yourself. And those can vary in accuracy depending on obviously how you get them. I recommend right off the bat that you ask your realtor to give you 12 months, 24 months if you have it, but at least 12 months of statements to verify how the building's operating. The difference between a accurate expense sheet and a not accurate expense sheet is the difference between you getting the financing and not. And I can't tell you how many deals I've seen where you take a look at the utility costs, and utility costs are thousands of dollars higher, and it can be a deal breaker, especially if you're looking to make money.
Yeah, next thing, taking a look at property taxes, there's a few scenarios in which you really need to make sure you've dialed these numbers in, or even talk to a tax consultant depending on what the project is. Obviously, if you're picking up an older building, what is the history of it? Was there any unit changes, any additions, any type of zoning changes that might have happened in the past few years? And then taking a look forward, what are you going to do to that project? Are you adding any sort of units to it? Right now we're seeing a lot of these municipal zoning changes that are allowing for up to 4, maybe 5 units if you're in the GTA. Obviously, looking ahead, if you're adding units down the road, your property taxes are going to increase, especially on new builds, new construction. I think I see so many investors and developers really underestimate the amount of property tax they have. They're considering resale buildings. When you take a look at a new project, you're probably 100x on your property taxes, if not more than that. We're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars in property tax, not $30,000. So when you're looking at big construction projects and even some of the smaller ones, again, like this underestimate of property taxes is going to be detrimental to your financing moving forwards. And if you don't have enough money to put down, that project is essentially dead. So if you're not sure about the numbers and you're trying to figure that out, you can take a look at MPAC assessments, trying to figure out the ratio of these other buildings to your buildings and what does that look like. Talk to a property tax consultant, talk to a professional, someone who's going to be able to give you much more insight into that and what that looks like, because again, property tax is a substantial number, especially on anything new and adding new units, and that's really going to impact your financing.
Historically, over the about last half decade, we haven't seen any movement in property taxes. Right before COVID, they were going to do an assessment on values, and it didn't happen. And then COVID happened, and they've been kicking the can down the road. Now this year, MPAC has gone out and they've started reassessing all the buildings. So if you own a building currently, you probably already have your MPAC assessment, which has increased your taxes. You're seeing it across the board with large municipalities. Toronto just raised 10%. We're seeing Guelph, Kitchener, everybody's raising their taxes. So when you're looking at historical expenses and you have a property tax rule provided to you by the seller, just keep in mind that you may actually, or most definitely will have increased property taxes on your building, so that will affect your overall debt servicing. It may not affect the underwriting on a building when you're giving it to the lender because it hasn't been done yet, but it actually might affect the operations of your building moving forward.
Vacancy is another important expense that we're going to take a look at, and can't tell you how many times we get expenses that have 0% because the building is fully tenanted. There's no vacancy. That's not how the lenders take a look at it, and it's definitely not how CMHC looks at it. Again, like Josh said at the start, a lender's looking at this from what happens if you go power of sale and they have to take over this building. Vacancy is there as a just in case type expense, an operating expense to make sure that as you do tenant turnover or as natural turnover happens, that there's enough income there for you to be able to keep making your monthly payments. That's an important factor for the bank. And when we're taking a look at CMHC specifically, you have to understand that CMHC just doesn't go off of your generic, realtor type vacancy. Your 3% here, your 2% there. They're actually dialing it into neighborhoods and specific zones to take a look at, that region of London, Ontario, or you Southwest, what area are you in? Each of those have a slightly different vacancy. And sometimes, just using that generic number isn't going to cover it. For example, I had a building in Edmonton and we took a look at Edmonton proper. It was 5%, but this specific region of Edmonton was actually 14%. And that was a huge difference, and it changed our numbers a little bit when it came down to, how much of a loan that we were going to be able to qualify for. So, again, just because your building has tenants in there doesn't mean that it's a zero vacancy. They're always going to use some sort of vacancy. And if you're using CMHC, again, we have to take a look at the specific region and zoning to make sure that number is accurate.
Yeah, and just because, again, as Ehren said, it's fully tenanted, it always means tenanted. That's not necessarily the case. So, understanding where to find that vacancy and just not taking the numbers that are provided to you by the seller as face value is going to be the difference between success of your project and not. All right, guys, let's dig into management. Now, management is a gray area for some people. They don't really understand if they have to have it, they don't have to have it. We're here to tell you it does need to be in your expenses, even if you self-manage your property for the most part. There are some gray areas. Aaron's going to get into that in a second, but all in all, if you are running your numbers, it's really prudent for you to put your management cost in there. If you're looking with CMHC has a fixed management cost, whereas some credit unions will allow you to take a 2-year average of historical management costs. Now, this does vary depending on the property management firm that you are going to have as well. If you have a signed contract with a property management firm and they'd be managing your portfolio and you could possibly show proof that your management costs might be slightly lower than what was given to you by the current owner, you might be able to reduce it a little bit, but all in all, we do need management costs in your expenses.
Yeah. Again, guys, a bank is looking at this as if they have to take this building over from you. The bank's not going to self-manage it. They're going to have a management company in there. Now, if you're someone that has $100 million in net worth and you own 30 buildings and you've been doing this for 40 years, maybe we can get away without using a property management expense. But for 98% of the investors out there, when we're running our numbers, best case and best practice is to put the management there. Just make sure there's no surprises at the end. We don't want to go in there with a $0 cost and everything's all pent up on this, having no expenses, and now you're short on closing because the numbers came back too low, right? So again, we're just trying to put in some margin and make sure, worst case scenario, this is what the underwriting is going to be. Yeah,
let's dig into maintenance. Now, maintenance is kind of a variable expense that can change depending on the type of lender you're using and the type of asset you own and how old the asset is. When you're looking at qualifying with CMHC, maintenance is a standard per door cost. It is probably more than you would underwrite your deal at, but it is something that's consistent with CMHC and requires that we use it on a per door basis. It changes depending on size of building as well as the type of structure it is, either wood frame or concrete frame. If you do have any questions about the specifics, reach out to us. We'll be able to help you out and determine what that is. But all in all, maintenance costs are really important when looking at acquiring a building and refinancing a building, because capital expenditure on pre-existing buildings can be massive if you don't plan for it properly. A lot of the times our clients will get a building condition report when they purchase the property to outline the expected capex over the next 10 to 25 years to determine what it's actually going to cost to maintain the building. Sometimes when you have an older building, lenders will add an additional reserve cost or an additional cost to your maintenance to be able to factor in some of the larger expenses that you're going to have to be completing on your project as you own the building.
PSA to sellers: give 2 to 3 years of financial statements. Don't just put together an Excel spreadsheet. Give us the full package to break down the building. What does it look like over 3 years? If you did large, capital type maintenance, new roof, windows, really expensive stuff that only needs to be done once every 20 years, let us know. Let us see that there's, in 2023, it was $100,000 because you replaced every single window and every single door. And maybe it's $40,000 a year, right? That's stuff that we can use to help make sure you get to close on your building. If our buyer can't close on it because, we don't have the full story and we're using this one-off maintenance cost, that makes a big difference. And for realtors, I know you guys don't like being told what to do, but push your clients to get 2 to 3 years of actual expenses. This, again, the single little spreadsheet, homemade expense, I see so many files that just have this. And, when we go to CMHC, they want to have 2 to 3 years of operating expenses. They want a full 12 months of statements for all, operating costs, utilities. They want to see the property tax. They want to see maintenance. This is stuff the lender's going to ask for. So, for us to be able to get your deals done, just make sure you put this together for the due diligence, because it's going to be asked on every single deal.
Or if you know a client who is working with us, or you don't know what to ask the seller, come and ask us. We'll happily give you the list of items that we require to be able to successfully make this happen for your clients, because it's not like it's just common knowledge. We don't sit here and think that you should know it, but it's just something that the banks are definitely requiring moving forward. And as we move into this really tight financing environment, probably for the next 12 months, the requirement for these documents can no longer be pushed to the side. The T's are being crossed, the I's are being dotted, credit is tight, and they're requiring all these documents to ensure that the building is going to be operating at the level they need to be able to give them financing.
Yeah, and sellers, again, if you're asking this high dollar cost per door and you give out an Excel spreadsheet, I just, back up your ass, have the numbers together at least if you're going to be tough to negotiate with. Just my opinion.
Last but not least, there are some magical additional expenses that CMHC has. And if you guys are looking for those, we can get into the specifics around them. Just reach out to Ehren and myself. But they have some additional expenses that are different from what you would normally have that's provided to you by the seller. As Ehren said at the start of this video, it does add a significant amount of expenses, which reduces your total net operating income. So when we underwrite a file with CMHC, that file is actually underwritten at a lower net operating income than what you're providing. So if we send you underwriting and you're like, this is wrong, this doesn't make sense, it's because we actually are required to operate your building at a higher level than what you're providing to us, which is why CMHC does allow that extended AM, that extended loan to value. It allows us to be able to increase the loan amount, but not as aggressively as the underwriting you may be providing to us. So just keep in mind that our numbers are always going to be different than your numbers, but all in all, there are products and solutions out in the market right now that can still help you qualify, that can still help you acquire assets. There are strategies that a lot of our investors are implementing right now that we're going to get into in a few more videos. You guys keep watching, but all in all, 2024 is going to be a year of the multifamily still, I think.
Yeah, I think municipal changes, especially GTA allowing up to 5 units. We're in multifamily technically. Rent seems to have cooled off a little bit. I think we all knew there was going to be a little bit of a ceiling as to how high rent could just continue to increase, but it's still up. Immigration is still an issue. Amount of homes is still an issue. Density is still an issue. So I think all in all, moving forwards, being emphasis on repositioning pre-existing multifamilies and development of new multifamily structures, moving forwards.
Yeah, guys, one thing to keep in mind is we've had a lot of clients come to us outlining that they're dealing with maybe some banks internally or maybe some brokers externally who aren't necessarily giving them all of the options available. So there are options for CMHC loans under $3 million. Somebody told me that yesterday. Their broker told them that they can't have a CMHC loan under $3 million. That is Incorrect. You definitely can. So, there are options out there like bridge options, higher debt servicing, amortized options. There are a ton of options in the market right now. So if you are looking for a second opinion, there's a lot of disinformation out there right now. So Erin and I would love to be able to have a conversation with you to look at your buildings to be able to determine, what is the best option moving forward, how to strategically place your building to get it where it needs to go while we're moving into a lower interest rate environment. Guys, we really appreciate your time today. If you did like this video, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. It allows Erin and I to shoot videos like this for you, to continue to make content to help you guys buy up all the buildings. If you have any questions, again, our contact information is down below. We really appreciate it.